How much thought do you give to what's on your actual plates? Hi, all, it's Sarah, your host of this episode and all conversations here in this space, What's on Your Plate podcast. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to share a thought with you and ask a question. Do you have a high standard for what you eat every day? I'm not talking about expensive taste or food that is trendy or having a moment in the spotlight. I'm talking about having an awareness of quality and purity and prioritizing nourishment that is whole food, plant forward by nature. Aligning, creating, and sustaining your true wellness within your own kitchen by making your own food from scratch as often as possible. Would you like to be less reliant on the grocery store for things like bread? Are you fed up with all the unnecessary additives and things like dressings, vegan meats, or baked goods? Do you just want actual nourishing foods that are as close to the source as possible without the chemicals, dyes, or preservatives? If any of these things feel important or even necessary to you, be sure to follow me at lilulos.vegan on Instagram for plant-based food inspiration, truth sharing, and recipes. If you're ready to learn how to eat more plants, the online course is the best place to start, and it's available now. Links to stay connected and find the course are linked to the show notes. All right, let's go. Let's get to today's conversation. So we have a lot to cover today. This is going to be a very involved conversation, as they tend to be whenever Monica and I show up in this same space. What's up, Monica?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, living the dream over here.
That's such a garbage phrase to say.
No, I mean, it's good. Just,
Tell everybody
currently
about your
summer.
tell everybody how you were attacked today. You were attacked. It was an assault
Okay, I didn't know we
on
were
your
going to talk
life.
about that, but I
Yeah,
guess
I
I'll
mean,
go
might as
ahead and
well.
tell. Since you brought it up, I
Yeah,
was viciously attacked by a bee.
a bumblebee. She was
It
mauled.
stung my toe. Okay,
Yeah.
so rude, really uncool. So you know, that's
The
been the
trauma of
low
your
of the
day.
day. I mean, there's worse
Yeah,
things for sure, but
absolutely. Absolutely.
um, I'll get through it. I'm sure with some
Look at you
reassurance.
like surviving though. You got this.
uh, well, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks for that shout out.
got you.
But what we're really here to talk about today, folks, is we're talking about boundaries, setting them, upholding them. I know that this is a really hot topic, and it is a topic
Mhm.
that really is part of everybody's life, day in and day out, whether they want it to be or not. But we
Mhm.
actually had a loyal listener reach out and ask us to dig a little bit deeper into this topic. So that's why we're here today. We're here
Mhm.
to just pull back these layers a bit and unravel some of the things that are just wrapped up in this topic.
Boundaries are hard. Boundaries are hard. And some people might set boundaries, but upholding them
Mhm.
is completely different. And sometimes you can bend your boundaries for certain people and still not feel good about it.
Mhm.
You're like, oh, well, that's my so and so. So I normally wouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it for them. But you still feel that ick inside. That's awful.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, setting boundaries, we need to remind ourselves constantly that it is not for anybody else's benefit but our own, right? We're
Correct.
not trying to take care of other people by setting our
No,
own boundaries. So that's
no,
something I
or
think gets
punish other people either. We're not punishing anybody either. We're
no,
taking care of ourselves.
right. And I think that gets confused a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
people feel like you're doing something to them when you set a
Yeah.
boundary.
Mm-hmm.
But really it's you taking care of yourself. It's one of the best ways that you can practice self-care
Yes.
is to truly set and uphold what is needed for you and for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And, our listener who reached out to us is just really finding that hard right now in this season of life, for sure. And I think it ebbs and flows with a lot of us based on just what happens and what our circumstances are. So, um, this is a good thing to dive into today, I think.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So, one of the things that I think is hard is the feeling of guilt because we may offend somebody by setting and upholding these said boundaries, no matter what they are. It doesn't matter what specifically they are, but somewhere inside of us lives a just a hesitation that
Mhm.
makes us pause when we try to set these boundaries, and certainly when we try to uphold them, because we're worried about how they will be received or how other
Yeah.
people will they accept them. Will
Right.
they accept them? Will they be mad at me? Will they
Right. That's my thing. It's like,
dismiss
oh, they're gonna be
me?
mad at me.
Yeah.
I don't
So
ever
one
want anybody to be mad.
Yeah, but you know what? Mad is one of the natural human emotions that
Mhm.
we can't avoid feeling,
No,
first and foremost. So I think that that's one of those things that we can't control what other people feel. Um,
100%.
and we should not try to do that.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Which, when we hesitate to uphold the boundary, is us trying to control how somebody else feels.
Mhm. You
Um,
have no control of that. The only thing you have control over is your response to a situation and the way that you
mhm,
feel. That is it. That is the
mhm.
only thing. Mm-mm.
And we talked a little bit about this before about how the idea of control in general is us a lack of trust in another
Yes.
person.
Mhm.
Um, and when you look at it from that angle, if you were to uphold a boundary and the other person got mad and you tried to, no, 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 but it's not that I want you to be upset about this. It's just that I need whatever it is. That's you trying to control what they're feeling because you don't trust their reaction or that they
Mm-mm.
will still show up in your life or love you in the way that they did before. That lack of
Absolutely.
trust is
Yeah,
terrifying.
it is. It is. But quite honestly, something that I've learned, and I know you've learned it too, if that person is going to be mad at you for setting a boundary, if that person isn't going to show up for you because you set a boundary, if that person is going to be like, well, I'm not going to do something for you, that person doesn't need to be in your space. That person doesn't
Yeah.
need to be in your space. That's
Uh,
the proverbial trash taking itself out. That's, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely can agree with that. And I know that now, and I think you know that at different points in the situation.
Mhm.
But also I think it's hard to view the person as that trash when maybe they're, you know, a close friend or
Oh,
a
absolutely.
sister or a parent or,
Yep.
somebody that has been a constant in your life.
Mhm.
And I feel like that makes it a lot harder. And it also is confusing to the other person too, depending on what that boundary is that you're setting. Maybe it's something that you have allowed to happen for a long, long time.
Mhm.
And maybe you were either once okay with it and now you're not, or maybe you never were and you just weren't, able to say otherwise for some reason.
Yeah.
But that's even harder. That's like you've almost like you've been like living in a lie for a long time and then you finally like are ready to speak your truth, but just can't, or
Mhm.
feel like you can't. And
Mhm. Right.
having gone along for a period of time allowing something and now you want to like change the boundaries of what you'll accept or how you will want to be treated, that's really confusing for the other person because it was always fine before.
Right. And
um
that's usually the thing that they say. Well, you never mind before.
right, and
We did
maybe
this
you didn't,
before. Yeah,
but oh, it's okay to change your mind,
it is. It
and
is.
it's okay
Because
to
it's okay to
evolve
change. Yeah.
and grow and
Yeah.
move into a different mindset than you were
Mhm.
before.
Right.
um so that giving yourself permission to do those things, to grow and evolve away from what is no longer working, I
Hmm.
think is really important in the boundary setting realm of things, in
Right.
that it's okay to do things differently.
Hmm. It's like as you learn new things, you know better, do better. So something might have been okay before, but now that you know a little bit more about that situation or how it affects another group of people or something of that nature, you're like, nah, I'm not okay with that.
For sure.
That's not very nice, and I don't like the way that makes me feel. And then the other person's like, what? It's no big deal. It's no big deal.
Hmm.
But it is a big deal.
Yeah. And it's like little things that come to minds, like, oh, well, you've always allowed me to bring my dog on my vacation before to your house, kind of thing.
Yeah,
And maybe now that doesn't work and you need to set
right.
that
Because you're sick and
boundary.
tired of that dog chewing on your couch, being on your rug.
Because for me, and like when you look at a relatively simple situation like that, um, think about it in a way where you're looking at it from from the future of what if I allowed this to happen again.
Hmm.
So working backwards, so to speak. So like, I'm going to tell this person today that, they're coming to see me next month for a week and they always bring their dog. Well, this time I can't have them bring their dog. And I'm going to think in my head, what's going to happen? Like, what's the worst case scenario? What am I dreading is going to
Hmm.
come of that conversation? And working backwards,
Yeah.
from that. Or looking at it from the angle of what if I allow this dog to come again? What's going to happen to me between now and then? That sense of
Hmm.
dread,
Yes.
how I'm going to be on guard that entire week they're here, and then
Hmm.
the damage control I have to do once they're gone, kind of
Right.
thing.
Yes.
So, looking at it from the angle of what if I uphold this and what if I tell them? I'm going to call them today and say, I can't wait to see you. I've been looking forward to it for so long, but I need to let you know, your dog is not going to be able to come along this time. And
Hmm.
doing so without like all these reasons or you trying to validate your
You.
decision, because you don't need to do that either. So, of course, the fear is this person's not going to like me anymore,
Hmm.
is like the worst case scenario, right? Or maybe a little bit on a lower level of that is they're not going to come. They're not going to come
Hmm.
visit me.
Hmm.
So, if those things happens, like they decide not to come, asking yourself how that's going to make you feel because you upheld that boundary,
Hmm.
in terms
Right.
of, are you going to be happy that you upheld that boundary and that they've
Mhm.
made their decision in what works best for them? Or are you going to be
Yeah.
retracting that now and saying, oh no, never mind, it's okay, go ahead and come, and then just like abandoning what you need?
Right. Because they could be like, well, we don't have anybody to watch the dog. The dog's really bad for the boarding place. There's lots of other reasons that they have to bring the dog. Dog's got
Mhm.
anxiety and you can't leave the dog on the 4th of July because it'll ransack the house. There's lots of different reasons, but it doesn't matter. That is not your problem. Them
Right.
having a dog was their decision. Them going on vacation is their decision. Now you have to figure
Hmm.
out what to do with your dog. Just feel like if you didn't want to bring your kid with you somewhere, you got to figure out what to do with your kid. You know,
Right.
kid might not be able to stay home alone. So what are you gonna do with your kid? You're gonna get a babysitter. You're gonna get grandma, grandpa watch them. You're gonna get a friend to watch them. You're gonna take them to daycare. Like, what are you gonna do with your kid? What are you gonna do with your
Hmm.
dog?
Right.
So figure it out. You could offer things like, oh, you know what, your dog can't come, but there's this really great boarding place down here. I check with them. They do have openings. Your dog just needs verification of these types of inoculations, blah, blah, blah. It's only this much per day.
Hmm.
There's
I
all
think
sorts of
that's
scenarios.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful. Like, if it is something like that, trying to help them find a different solution,
Hmm.
maybe there's a boarding place right here, or hey, maybe I'll come see you. And then that
Hmm.
takes the pressure off completely. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that there's different ways that we can approach setting boundaries so that you make an effort to make the other person feel more comfortable
Hmm.
without just completely disregarding somebody else's feelings, because
Right.
I know that that's important to our friend that reached out to us. She's concerned about hurting other people's feelings or
Hmm.
offending somebody because she
Yeah,
upholds her boundaries. Um, but I often wonder too if the people that she is referring to, and her situation is not about a dog. It is
right.
deeper, and it is, we won't go into it fully here because she's not here to discuss it with us, but I often wonder the people that she is trying not to offend, how would they feel if they really knew what she was going through? How would
Absolutely.
they feel about what she is feeling? So if they were to just overhear her speaking out loud, or maybe they read a journal,
Hmm.
read in her journal how she just unloaded her heart of this onto paper, and somebody happened to read it, and it just outlined her agony of the
Hmm.
situation of what she's going through, and that she
Right.
feels so just tied to pleasing other people. I wonder if those individuals would just, like, if that was me, I would just feel so horrified that somebody felt that they had to accommodate me in that way, and that they couldn't take care of themselves first.
Yeah, I agree. I
I don't
agree.
ever want to be a
Especially,
burden.
right. No, never. Me either. And I would feel absolutely horrible if somebody was going through like the worst time of their life and I'm just piling on more shit
Right.
because I'm being needy,
Right.
like in the grand scheme of things, is what I'm asking of this person that important when they're going through the freaking thick of it?
Hmm.
You know, I think that's for the people that are putting that weight on her. I I feel so bad for her because they should know that she's going through some shit.
Hmm.
These aren't massive secrets of the things that happened in her life. So they should be a little bit more respectful in asking bigger things of her, for sure.
Sure. Sure. One would hope.
One would
Absolutely.
hope. But not everybody
Um,
thinks that way.
and unfortunately, we do live in a world where, women in particular have been groomed to just carry on and pull through
Hmm.
and just carry the burdens of all the things. You have to just keep an on type of
Yeah,
situation,
it's
and
hard. It's
it is
really, really
hard,
hard.
and I think it's unreasonable,
Very much
in a
so.
lot of ways. I mean, I feel as though too much is expected of women in a lot of regards, and
Hmm.
this is certainly a whole other podcast episode for sure, that whole topic there. But don't expect somebody to do the things that they have always done when they aren't even able to do for themselves what
Correct.
is best for them. But it
Absolutely.
is up to us to tell people that we're not able to even do what we can for our own selves, because it goes back to that, just also understanding that people cannot read your mind,
Hmm.
and they don't know what they don't know. So I
True.
often wonder too, this conversation, is it could it simply be a matter of just honestly speaking out loud about what you
Hmm.
need, or
Yeah.
asking for help with something, or reaching
Hmm.
out for somebody else's hand? And
Yeah.
I wonder if it could also be just a pride thing, in that manner of
Hmm.
not wanting to,
Simply
not
ask for
wanting
help.
not wanting to ask for help, not wanting to come off as being vulnerable,
Hmm.
because that too, society tells us that asking for help or being vulnerable is a weakness,
Yeah.
when really I feel like it's the bravest thing in the world to do, is to
It,
seek help.
yes, it truly is. The phrase that I hate the most, which everybody means it in the nicest way possible, and I've heard it for the past 2.5 years. You're so strong. You're so strong. I hate that. I don't ever want to hear that phrase again.
Hmm.
I mean, even if I were to pick up a freaking Buick with one hand, I don't want somebody to tell me that I'm strong. I don't like that word. I don't like that
Mhm.
phrase even more. I am not strong. I chose to persevere through hard shit. That doesn't make me strong. That just means I didn't like the alternative. That's the
Right.
only thing. I didn't I didn't have a choice, but I had a choice. I could have chose something different, but I chose to carry on. But it was really freaking hard. And I'm not strong. And there were days where I I barely went through the motions.
Hmm.
Barely.
I know.
There is no part of me that is strong. But everybody says it. And I'm just so tired of hearing it. So tired.
And, I would use the word relentless, and not strong because
Mm-hmm.
that just seems more relevant and it can mean a similar thing too in terms
Sure.
of you carried on and you got through. But I think people say that because maybe they see themselves falling apart in
Mm-hmm.
some way that they don't see you falling apart, but
Mm-hmm.
that too is only what people see.
Absolutely. Nobody
All
you saw the hard stuff. You saw me not eating. You saw me not functioning in life. And nobody else saw that stuff. I wouldn't dare show anybody else that stuff.
But I think people do that. I think that's something that just happens when you go through hard things, and maybe we can't see it in ourselves when we're personally going through it. That's, what people would call strength, or what maybe you would call
Mm-hmm.
perseverance, or I would say relentless.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everybody has to pick themselves up.
Yeah.
It isn't, it can be a choice. Um, that too is a loaded topic, but um,
Mm-hmm.
what are you going to do with it? What can you do with it other than carry on with it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people use the word strength as a way to show admiration, and to maybe even show a sense of like support and comfort, I guess. And
Yeah, probably. I would say that
yeah,
that feels accurate.
but it's not helpful.
Not at all. No.
No,
No.
no, not at all.
No.
Um,
When you're falling apart, you don't want to hear that.
no. And
It
you don't
doesn't
want
serve.
and you don't want people to see it, like you said. So
Yeah.
I think, getting back to that vulnerable factor and not letting people really see just the depths of what we're feeling or what we're going through, is a way for
Mm-hmm.
one to continue to show up, because if you just melt into a puddle of grief and not function, what is that doing for anybody?
For
um
you, for your family, for anybody.
and
Absolutely.
yeah, and I mean, and there is a period of time where you do allow yourself to melt, right? Because again,
Full show.
you're not expected to just carry on and
Yeah.
suck it up, so to speak. But
Right.
I also have the understanding too of not doing that too
Not
publicly,
staying there.
because, well, not
Mm-mm.
staying there and not doing it publicly, because I think most of us don't want to be felt sorry for.
No, no.
So if you allow yourself to be in that space of melting and being vulnerable, and then somebody feels sorry for that
Mm-hmm.
situation, um, that's is a hard place to be as well.
It sure is.
So
It
getting
sure is.
getting back to what we touched on a little bit earlier though as well, backing up
Mm.
into the boundary, like setting it and then projecting your thoughts forward to think about what happens when you uphold that. And I think the biggest thing that I have felt when I have upheld boundaries or set boundaries and upheld boundaries is that there's always the fear of people leaving my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now that begs to ask a different question
Mhm.
of, are those people that I'm so afraid to lose meant to stay?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
not everybody is.
No, sometimes it's for a season, um, sometimes it's for a reason, kinda rhymes, but it's it's true. I sent you a reel the other day. Sarah and I like to send each other reels, like, all day long, and never say, like, a real word to each other. We just send reels, that are relatable. And there was this one that I came across, and it was something like, psychology says, but it was very true. It was about friendship and about if you have a friend for longer than 7 years, chances are that friend is with you for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And Sarah and I have been best friends now for, I think, going on 15 years. And this chick is stuck with me for forever. We're going to be ghost best friends.
For real.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. But there are some friends that I've had in my life that during that time, they were great. They were really great friends. We got along, we had things in common. It could have been one of those real fast friendships where like you just met them and you just knew instantly that they were going to be your friend. And a couple years went by and you guys just drifted apart. Maybe nothing happened. You just drifted apart. And then there's other times where you just clash heads and you never want to speak to that person again. Um, Sarah and I aren't like that. We ebb and flow. We talk or reel every day. And it's just something that's going to continue. But there have been people in my life, and I know in your life, that they're just there for a little bitty bit. And that's okay. We're going to take something from that friendship or relationship that is either going to be good or bad. And hopefully, even the bad stuff, you learn good things from, like how to set boundaries.
Absolutely. And I think two things you said there, learn something from the situation for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
what good can you take from it, even if it
Mm-hmm.
has been a hard lesson type of thing.
Yeah.
But also, sometimes those people that leave our life or at least distance themselves from our life when we set those boundaries have been lifelong people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe they haven't been
Absolutely.
there for just a bit, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what
It's
makes
true.
it a lot harder to set those boundaries with those types of people,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you have already endured great loss
Yeah.
of like a lifelong person or a partner type of person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a real valid fear to consider that could happen. You
Yeah.
could lose somebody when you set a boundary, but
Absolutely.
it comes back to that thought of, what do you deserve for your life and
Mm-hmm.
what do you want for your time here? What do you need to do to get to that point? And if setting that boundary is needed and upholding it is necessary in order
Mm-hmm.
for you to be happy and at peace, even at the cost of potentially losing a lifelong type of person,
Mm-hmm.
it must be done.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, the quality of your life moving forward, the quality of your mental health completely suffers.
Yeah.
And is that really, are you really willing to trade that just to like
Absolutely
not
not.
offend somebody?
To make them not mad at you or make them not leave.
Right.
No. No. What's the worst thing that can happen if that person leaves?
Some of the hardest things are the most necessary things.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's the right decision doesn't mean it's going to be an easy one.
No. No,
But
it's lovely when it works that way. It's lovely, but it's
yes,
not always how it happens. That's not reality.
but I think what happens is sometimes we allow ourselves to get pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where it feels like an easy decision because we've gotten to some breaking point
Mm-hmm.
that we never should have, right? It never should have
Yeah.
got to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that
For sure.
resentment that builds over time, if you
Mm-hmm.
continue to allow yourself to be treated in a way that doesn't feel good or to be taken advantage of,
Mm-hmm.
that is real. That is in your
Yes.
heart and that sits in your mind. And those are the things that affect your ability to show up for yourself and maintain mental health and even physical health, just the
Mm-hmm.
constant the constant thoughts that you're always going back to because something isn't in alignment
Yeah.
is just derailing so many other parts of your life.
Hmm. I think if somebody asks something of you and you don't immediately be like, oh, yes, I love that. It's a great idea. If you have any type of hesitation, like, oh, I don't know. Let me think about it. Ugh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to sit with that for a minute. If you're have to sit with it for a minute, it's because there's some part of it that you don't like. So figure out what that part is and say like, your employer is asking you to work way more hours than you want to. So say
Mhm.
for instance, you're working 33 hours a week and your employer is like, really, I need you to start working the weekends. It'll be great for you. We'll give you a different kind of cut or, compensate you differently. It's like, oh, that sounds great, getting compensated differently, but now you're sacrificing your time. Okay. Time for you is very important. So what are you going to lose? Why do you feel ugh about it? What's that ugh? So you're going to lose that on time with your family, your kids, your spouse. Are they going to be okay with that? Who would you rather abandon? Your employer or your family now?
Mhm.
Who are you gonna not show up for?
Mhm.
Like, okay, well, if I decided to work those extra hours, it would be extra money for my family. It could provide more for my family, but then I'm gonna miss out on time with my family. So it's balance.
Mhm.
Who am I gonna offend more? Who does it matter that I offend more? So both situations, somebody's gonna be upset for whatever reason. Your employer is just an employer. They do not have your well-being at heart. You are an employee to help fill a position, to help do a job, to make them more successful. That's great. That's what you're built there for. That's okay. But your family is different. Your family needs you to provide for them, but they also need you to nurture them and to help out with homework and to take them to sports and to play games with them and to love on them and to hang out on the couch and watch endless episodes of Bluey, which is a great show, by the way. For me, I would be more upset if I abandoned my family because I can never get that time back ever. I will always make more money. And even if I don't make more money, big freaking deal. I'll downsize. I'll do whatever I need to do to make ends meet if it means being there more for my family.
Mhm.
That for me is my priority is being there for my family. So working a couple extra hours to me doesn't feel good because I want to be able to sit and watch Bluey with my kids,
Yeah.
you know, and
I
that
love that.
that feels good. That feels good. So now you have to figure out a tactful way to say, thank you for the opportunity to work more hours, but I really feel like I'm needed at home. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I'm not going to budge on that. I understand if that's upsetting to you. I understand if you're going to have to fill my position differently. How can we make this work to where it's profitable for both of us? But family's my priority. You will never, ever get that time back with your family. You will never
Mhm.
get that time back with your kids. They will never be little again. So for me, I choose family, and that's where my boundary lies. I'm not going to budge it. I'm not going to budge my boundary. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, what is your boundary, and how are you going to uphold it, and not worrying about offending somebody else?
Right.
Knowing that this is a good decision. I picked the right choice. I know I did. I don't feel bad about my choice. I picked this. This is what I'm sticking with. This is what I'm going with. I know it's right. Sorry
Mhm.
for you. That didn't work out. How can we make this easier?
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Something you said within all that too really makes a lot of sense.
The Bluey bit. It's a good show.
Oh, for sure, Bluey makes a lot of sense. Um, I wish my kid would watch more Bluey. He watches all kinds of other nonsense, but not Bluey. I should just put it on one day and
Just
see
put
what
it on.
happens.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll leave.
Um, Honestly, I'd prefer he just shut the TV off, but I
Yeah.
digress. Anyways, um, so perseverating on or constantly stressing on something that you don't want to do, right? Or something
Mhm.
that's happening that you just aren't connecting with for whatever reason, whatever you are constantly worrying about is the thing that should be your no.
No,
It should just be
no,
no,
no.
whatever you said yes to that is causing you to just feel dread about
Hmm.
whatever it is, or regrets if it's already
Regrets.
been
Ugh.
done, like you've
Yeah.
already said yes, and whatever,
Hmm.
whatever the situation is, it could be big or small.
Hmm.
That is your answer right there.
Yes.
If you
And to
are,
me, yeah, to me, I think regret is worse than dread. Like
mm,
once you made that decision and you went with it, and you're like, oh, I wish I never did that.
well,
Wish
yeah,
I never did
because
that.
depending on what the situation is, regret is something that you wish you did not do. But if you're
Hmm.
dreading something, you might
You have
still
the
be able
choice.
to take it back.
Yeah.
You could
Like,
change
nah,
your mind.
I
So,
thought about it and I'm saying no.
yeah, very different things. But yeah,
Hmm.
and that too, like giving yourself permission to go ahead and change your mind. Like even if you
Hmm.
already said, you know what, I know, and just for simplicity's sake, I will bring the dog situation back
Hmm.
into the picture here. Listen, I know I said that you could bring your dog, but I'm sorry, it's just our house just isn't fit for a dog. We're just not
Hmm.
going to be able to accommodate your furry family friend.
Yes.
Um, and just leave it at that and take it
Yeah.
back. And the worst case, again, back up into it. Back up into what they're going to say. They're
Hmm.
either going to say, "Oh, yeah, no problem.
Hmm.
We'll figure something out," or "Is there a
Yeah.
kennel nearby?" or "I totally understand. I respect, your home and your space and your preference." Or
Right.
the other end of that is, "Oh, well, I guess we can't come because we can't bring our dog. And why didn't you just say you didn't like our dog?" It goes into this whole other thing
Right.
of
Right.
nonsense that's not true, that twisting of words and changing the truth
Yeah.
because you don't like what you've heard. You
Yes.
receive it in a way that it was not intended
Yeah.
to be received.
Yeah.
But if somebody does say that, if somebody does get angry, then just know that their level
Mm.
of respect for you is so low
Yes.
that this conversation was necessary for you to
Hmm.
be able to just reassess your self-worth, your value,
Yes.
and
Go stay at a Motel 6. I think they allow dogs. You know, like
but
I'm giving you a free place to stay.
whatever it is, I'm the dog is just a very bland example of so many other possible ways that we need to take a closer look at what we allow into our lives
Yes.
and who we allow into our lives and what we accept as treatment of
Hmm.
ourselves.
Yes.
And it's just very easy to go down that path of acceptance or tolerating behaviors from other people or in different circumstances, getting stuck in
Hmm.
the obligatory things even though no part of you wants to.
Right.
um and I remind myself all the time, it's becoming a new mantra. Every time I say yes to something I don't want, I am saying no to something I do want. And is
Hmm.
that worth it to me?
Yeah.
And what is that going to cause in my heart and in my mind? And how is
Hmm.
that going to ripple out into my relationships and my
Yeah.
connections and my work and my health? When you
Hmm.
think about how much it affects when you lower those boundaries, it's not just the one thing. It's
No.
not just that one part of your day or your life that
No.
you're making an exception for. So much is affected by it.
It's a domino effect. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's very true. And the thing that people need to understand about boundaries is that, like we touched on earlier, they're for nobody else except for ourselves. So
Mhm.
if somebody else is like, ugh, that's such a petty boundary, that's such a silly boundary.
Mhm.
No, it's not yours. You might have a completely different stance on it. Your boundary might be something completely different than mine.
Mhm.
But for me, that's my boundary. And it could be something so petty and trivial and silly. Something, no soft drinks in the car. You go to pick up your friend, like, ooh, can you finish that drink really quick? I don't like any liquids in my car. They'll be like, what? are you serious right now? And you'd be like, yeah, yeah. I just had everything like cleaned and detailed, and I just get worried about stuff getting sticky, and I'm like really neurotic about sticky stuff. Personally, we know we're not talking about my car.
No,
My
you
car
have
looks,
children. Come on, people.
yeah. And it looks like a dumpster heap. But I'm saying, like, I'm just trying to think of like a super petty boundary. Respect it. It's not yours. Just respect that that's their space. It's their car. You could choose not to get in. You'd be like, oh, well, I just got this. So I'm just going to ride my own car and I'll follow you.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you got to get mad about it? Were you going to throw a fit? You're going to throw a fit because you can't bring your soft drink into somebody else's car? Who cares? Be like, oh, hold up. Let me chug this real fast. Shoot that
Yeah.
thing and then get in the car. Like, it's fine. It's really not a big deal. Respect other people. Respect other people's boundaries, respect other people's property, respect other people. Like, how is it so hard? Just respect other people. Why do we even have to call it a boundary? How about just call it respect?
Yeah. I love that.
That's a novel idea.
Yeah, that is a great idea. And I feel like when you're talking about that, like, what is the big deal? Just respect it. Why are you going to get mad? Like, I just have so many just thoughts going through my mind of how, just as a society, this is not a thing. And we constantly just expect other people to tolerate our bullshit all the
No,
time. And
I'm saying let's respect other people. Just it's respect. There's no boundaries. There's no boundaries. It's not a boundary. It's just respect. Just respect.
for sure.
People don't need to justify something because I think that's when it becomes a boundary. So you have to justify why you feel some way. And in all actuality, you just be like, no, no, soft drinks in my car. And
Yeah.
somebody's like, oh, okay, sorry. Let me chug this real quick. Oh, let me throw this out. I was
Hmm.
done anyway.
Yeah.
No explanation needed. No explanation needed. Nobody needs to feel bad about anything. Nobody needs to throw in like 50 different reasons why they don't want sodas in their car or whatever. Like, there's no. And you'd be like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
cool. Cool.
Well, when you do that too, when you're trying to justify your decision of no dog at the house or no soft drink in the car, or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to talk yourself into why the other person should just accept that. You're
Yeah.
trying to talk them into something that you need by just sort of dancing around the
Yes.
topic of it
Yeah.
all, trying to soften it, if you will. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just not necessary. It is okay to just say no. It doesn't have to be no, but or no
But
because.
right.
It's just no.
No.
And how would you look at it if whatever you are trying to uphold your boundary with or asking for respect for was the same thing, but it was your child
Blech.
requesting that
Yeah.
from somebody else? And I think if you can look at it as somebody expecting that level of respect for somebody they love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if your daughter or let's say your spouse or anybody else that you just care deeply for you, let's say, you
Mm-hmm.
were asking or expecting this boundary, this respect to be upheld,
Mm-hmm.
and it
And they're just like,
wasn't.
I've got a great scenario. This one's super silly too. It's something seemingly harmless on the surface, but it really hurts some feelings in the long run. So I put a kibosh to it and it was not perceived well. So I was dating a dirtbag a couple of years ago. A shocker, I know. Um, and Evelyn is the spicy one. If anybody is listening with any regularity, they've heard that name before. Evelyn is spicy. She can't even help it. She's a ginger baby. It's not her fault. But so her name is Evelyn. This dirtbag McDurdertons, he called her Evil Lynn.
Oh my.
Do you remember this or no?
I think so, but you can tell
Okay,
it.
so he would call her Evil Lynn, and it was kind of funny at first, like, oh, it's kind of fitting. Like she's a little bit evil. But she's not bad. She just did a little bit naughty things. She's just spicy. So he started calling her Evelyn, and then it kind of like all of us were starting to call her Evelyn. And then there was one day, and she was little, she was like 3. She's like, I don't like to be called Evelyn. I was like, no. I was like, she's like, it hurts my feelings. And instantly
Aw.
I had this soul crushing pain in my chest. Like I was part of this. It's no different than calling her butthole. It's
Or
no
some other
different than
mean
calling
name.
her a
Yeah.
mean name. Like this to her felt mean. And
Yeah.
it's just the same as calling her like shithead. Like that's horrible. I felt so freaking bad. Talk about regret. I felt so horrible. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. If you don't like it, nobody should call you that name again. Your name is
Mm.
Evelyn, and your mommy's a little angel. You're a good girl. You're a good baby. Like, you're not evil. And she's like, can you tell everybody to stop calling me Evelyn? I'm like, yes, I absolutely will. And when I told him to stop calling her Evelyn, he was so butthurt. Like, so butthurt. Like, just stop calling her that name. Like, call her something else, but a nice one. Call her a nice name. I was like, and also, like, we can't sit there and say bad things about her behavior like that because that's like continuing the bad behavior. I just don't
Right.
feel good about
It's
that.
like two wrongs don't make a right kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it's like if we expect her to behave a certain way and we want her to feel like she's good, maybe we just, why don't we call her, good girl? Like that's an extreme opposite, but it's like the same thing. Or just call her Evelyn. Like
Yeah.
weird. Just call her Evelyn.
Weird, right? Yeah, just
She's
call her her
got
name.
700 other cute little nicknames. I mean, her silliest nickname I have for her is Doodlebug. Why? I don't know. She's
Yeah.
Doodlebug. That's just what it is. She loves that. She loves
Hmm.
that. I'm the only one that calls her Doodlebug. We could be in a crowd of people and I call Doodlebug and she just turns around with a big old grin on her face. I'm not
Yeah.
calling her Evelyn.
But that's a great point, because how would you advocate for that respect if it was for somebody that you loved and were
But couldn't
protecting?
necessarily, yes, they can't advocate for themselves.
Right. You love them and
Yeah.
protect them. So how would you advocate for that person?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
treat yourself that way. Love and protect
Yeah.
yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can look at it through that lens of,
Yes.
I am somebody who I love and respect. So I
Mm-hmm.
will advocate for my own safety, my own
Mm-hmm.
peace, my
Mm-hmm.
own just calm and comfort and respect.
Yeah.
If you can look at it like that, I think so much can change.
Mm-hmm. I learned a really interesting take on joking, I'm using air quotes that nobody can see, joking sexual harassment
Oh,
by
yeah.
a male client of mine today. And he had a really interesting take on it. I thought it was brilliant. He's like, I have the perfect way to explain mild sexual harassment to young men or women that just don't get it. I was like, oh, I would love to hear your take on this. So he gave the example of his stepdaughter works for like a beauty company and they have to wear these little fanny packs with zippers on them and whatnot. And there was a staff member that would walk around and to these girls, I mean, these are younger girls, like early 20s or something. He would walk around and like zip and unzip their little fanny pack. Like,
What?
ew, yeah, your face is cringe, right? And it was
Ah,
always like played off like, oh, it's just silly. I mean, he didn't mean anything by it. He's not touching you officially. He's just messing with your little zipper pouch, right? No big deal. His take on this was absolutely fantastic. And it was say you're in prison, okay, a little extreme, but say you're in prison and the biggest, baddest dude in prison walked up to you and did the exact same thing you were doing to somebody else. Would it make you uncomfortable? If the biggest, baddest man in prison walked up to you and you had a little fanny pack on the front, he just did a little zip zip, would you be like, whoa, my God? Or if that big, bad man put his arm around you and caressed your shoulder, even though he meant nothing by it, how would that make you feel? Would you feel uncomfortable? Would you feel harassed? Would you feel a little uneasy in your own skin? If you would feel that way by somebody that's bigger and stronger, and potentially more harmful, don't do it to somebody else. Do not do that to somebody else. Your harmless little act of playing with somebody's zipper is still making somebody else feel slightly uncomfortable. Don't do it. Don't do it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot.
That's a
Seemingly harmless.
whole nother
It
podcast
is.
episode there. We should touch on that topic at some point. We haven't ventured very much into
No,
that.
write that
Um,
down.
but I feel super activated by that topic because it's something that
Yeah.
just really infuriates me. The control that people
Yes.
think they have over you in that
Absolutely.
regard. But
Yeah.
again, that's a conversation for another day,
Hmm.
folks. But
Hmm.
I am
But
glad that
that's,
that person shared that with you because
yes.
it was really easy to understand when you look at it from that angle why something
Hmm.
isn't okay. So,
Yeah.
what is going to make you uneasy, you uncomfortable
Hmm.
is just not okay. If you know it is going to make somebody else feel
Yeah.
that way, it's not
Yeah.
okay.
Right. And if you think that's totally fine for this big old dude to come up to you and play with your little zipper pouch, you got issues, first of all. But there's nobody that's gonna be like, oh yeah, I'd totally be fine with that. Totally be fine with that. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
No, you would feel uncomfortable. Like, what is this person's intention? What is this person gonna do to me? Ugh.
Hmm.
No, don't make somebody else feel uncomfortable. And be okay with them setting a boundary. Be like, oh, you're in my personal space. You're a little bit
Hmm.
too close to my no square.
Right.
Back it up like 6 feet, homie. Um, why would anybody think it's okay to invade somebody's personal space without being invited?
Or their mental
Those are one.
space.
Yes,
Or
yes,
their emotional space or their spiritual
yes.
space.
All of the spaces.
Don't,
Respect.
yeah, seriously. I mean, because if you are inviting somebody in, and by inviting somebody in, I don't necessarily mean you even have to be like deeply connected to them, but if you
Hmm.
are somehow associated with or conversing with or related to, connected with. Like those are people that you have to a certain degree allowed into some part of your life, right?
Hmm.
So if you are allowing somebody in and they are harming any part or threatening, even if it's not directly, but just doing
Hmm.
some type of damage to or threatening or making any part of your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health feel like it is somehow threatened,
Hmm.
then that is not okay. And
No,
that
it's not.
is that respect or boundary, whichever word you choose to use,
Yeah.
needs to be reevaluated for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And also, I
Absolutely.
want to say too about those types of things, like, or, whichever it is, don't feel like you cannot ask for help in setting those boundaries or that respect because maybe you're not in a place in your life where you feel maybe safe enough
Safe. Yeah,
to
that's a good.
tell somebody that, like,
Hmm.
look, this isn't working anymore type of
Hmm.
situation and I need this to change.
Oh yeah.
um don't feel like you can't call in help for that. Like
Yes.
other people that you trust, um, or depending on the severity of the situation, the authorities, don't
Right.
feel like you have to go it alone. You
Yeah.
definitely don't. That's something that I really want to point out because if you are already in a position in your life where you feel just like you have just a lot of things that are out of your control or that you have given other people control over and now you want it back type of thing.
Hmm.
um that is a situation where you should absolutely ask for help.
Yes.
um
Yes.
because
Especially in like horrible situations like abuse.
100%, like don't
Absolutely.
ever
Go get help. No,
yeah, go.
don't fight that battle alone at all.
No.
You know, ask for help from a friend, a family member, authority, especially, and
Hmm.
get help immediately.
Hmm.
Like once you decide enough is enough, like that should be the end of the conversation.
Right.
Enough is enough. Go get help. There's always somebody that's willing to help
For
in
sure.
abuse situations. And again, the authorities are the best place to go because they will give you sanctuary while you can get your life together and figure things out. And they have resources, they have shelters and all
Yeah,
sorts of wonderful, wonderful things that maybe a friend has the best intentions, but they can't provide that.
absolutely. And then
So
also
once you know your
too,
boundaries, do them.
yeah, but also too on like the lower spectrum of the respect or boundary setting too. Like if it is about that dog or bringing that pop in the car,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, the person that's sitting in the back seat already that you picked up first, be that good friend and say, hey, like, yeah, definitely, let's respect her car space type of thing,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
even just that help from somebody else in any situation. Like if you just feel like, like you're pulling up to somebody's house and you're like, oh, there they are. They're about to bring that pop in here, that
64
big
ounce
gulp.
big gulp.
Uh, and you're just like hemming and hawing. You're like, oh man, I really don't want them to bring it in here. I'm gonna have to tell them they
Mm-hmm.
can't. And oh, it's just gonna
Mm-hmm.
cause this tension. But
Yeah.
if you can be that, reassurance
Yeah.
in the back seat where you're just like, hey, I had to set mine aside too when I got in. It's fine.
Yeah.
We'll get another one when we get to where we're going. It's no big deal. And just
Absolutely.
like
The next one's
reassure
on me. Yeah,
for sure,
absolutely. Yeah.
but just know that no matter what the situation is, like just don't feel like you have to face those hard things alone. If it's something
No.
that is really weighing heavy on your heart and mind, bring somebody with in whatever way that means to you,
Right.
that can just help support you in that situation. I think that's
Yes.
important.
Yes. Yeah. Having support is just emotionally soothing for us. Having
Hmm.
that one other person, like, you know what? I respect your decision. I think that's a great idea. I'm really proud of you for
Yeah.
holding your boundaries. Um, I mean, I do some really dumb things, but I do some really okay things too. And I usually run them by you. And
You tell me
I mean,
after.
well,
Not
sometimes,
always.
not always. It depends on the situation.
So I'll
But
get like a text while you're out walking out the door. Hey, just so you know, I'm about to go do this. We've had no time to talk about it. It's just
well,
like,
listen,
hey, you
listen.
can't say I didn't tell you, but I
That's when I
also
go
didn't
on
want to
dates.
debate it.
Right. That's when I go on dates because you approve of nobody. Um,
Okay, have I been wrong thus far?
no,
Okay,
absolutely
then.
not. You've been 100% right, but let me live my dumb life.
So hey, that goes back to something we said earlier about I am not in control of your life. I have zero interest in I can't even control my own life. I'm not about to try to control your life.
Hey, same, same.
However, um, that trying to control or that
But you've
just
been given permission though.
yes, I
So
have. But
it's
it is a
different.
lack of trust
Yeah,
because
because I do bad things. I
you
make
don't do
poor
bad things.
decisions. I make poor
It's
decisions sometimes.
you know what it is? It's
I'm
not that
stupid.
no, I
Oh,
would
okay,
never
go ahead.
use that word first and foremost. I don't use that word, people. Okay.
Don't.
That's
She
Monica
doesn't.
said that, not me.
That Monica
Anyways,
said that. That's right.
I don't trust other people with your heart. That's what it
No,
is.
no. And I love
So
you for that.
that's the problem I have with you
Yeah,
dating people because people suck. I don't know.
people do suck.
But
People do
again,
suck.
there's been so many like little sidestep things that are conversations for other episodes because we could go on and on here, clearly.
Absolutely.
Um, but that's a great example too, like if you need to uphold a boundary with somebody that
Mhm.
you spent time with and maybe you're allowing something you allowed something then that you're not now,
Mhm.
having somebody like me in the room to just sort of be
Yes.
that reassurance when you're saying whatever it is. I think if that's needed, that should be available, and that is
Yes.
something that everybody should seek out if they need it
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's it's about having just your just a support person It's just somebody there saying like, I believe in what you're doing. I believe in what you're saying. I want you to feel comfortable upholding your boundaries. So I'm going to be there for you just as backup. I won't say anything unless I need to, but I'm there for you.
Yeah.
And that way you don't feel like you're compromising yourself because I know you and they're going to whittle you down and then you're going to bend that boundary and then you're going to regret it because that's what happens. That's what happens every
Mhm.
single time. You feel bad, you hurt their feelings, they make you feel bad, they make you feel lesser than, and you whittle it down and you change your mind. And then you feel sick. Then you feel disgusted with yourself.
And that too is a whole different level of um personality and
Mm-hmm.
traits. Like that's called a narcissist, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't like those
That's
types of
called
people.
gaslighting. Like there's different things that is where, that goes to the extreme in different ways. But
Mm-hmm.
I always want to remind people too, and this is such a hard truth because nobody wants to hear it. They're fearful of this scenario, but it's okay if not everybody stays.
Okay.
And that is the worst case
Yeah.
scenario, I feel like, in terms of upholding boundaries, is
Mm-hmm.
that somebody is going to
There's a
leave
leaf.
and that scares you.
Yeah.
And let's just normalize not making decisions based on fear
Mm-mm.
because I think that happens so much. We
Yeah.
are just so scared of these imagined outcomes
Right.
that
Right. And
we
I'm
can't.
I'm the queen of that.
You
I'm the
are.
queen of imaginary scenarios. I
Mhm.
thought that everybody thought this way. I thought that everybody like prepared for every single scenario that could ever happen. I feel like oh, who's that Marvel guy? The time guy. Doctor is that Doctor Who? I don't know. Somebody else knows. But it's the time guy. He controls time. But he can like look at like billions of different scenarios that can happen. Like that's me, but I'm not as cool and I don't have a cape or special
Yeah.
powers. But
And I
I think
think
about
those,
every scenario.
and it's a trauma response, and I think people that
Mm-hmm.
have been through traumas, and, we all have to a certain degree, but some of it's little t, some of it's big T, and some of it's a lot of both. And the more you've been through, the more of a response you have to these types of things in that way of, if somebody doesn't answer, then of course something horrible happened to them. If somebody doesn't return a text in the next 5 seconds, then of course they've died, and I know that that's
Mm-hmm.
where your brain has gone
I
repeatedly
can't
over and
call me out
over
like that, man.
again.
You can't call me
Um,
out.
but it is that trauma response. And
It
again,
is.
I will say it, and I said it earlier in this conversation, it is more likely to have those trauma responses when you have already had a great loss in your life. And our
Mm-hmm.
friend today who reached out to us has had great loss, and she does have fear of other people leaving, I'm sure, because of
Yeah.
that response, because of that loss.
Yeah.
So it isn't as if it's not valid. It's something that just for sure needs to be worked through
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledge it, work through it, and get to the point where you're saying more and more yes to yourself than to
Mm-hmm.
anybody else,
Yeah.
because that is how you protect your mental health, and that is how you
Mm-hmm.
protect your heart and your spirituality and even your physical body, is more yeses to you than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you cannot take care of you, that's going to be the ultimate way that you disappoint other people, right?
Right.
Is if you just can't show up at all.
Completely abandon yourself. And then
Yeah.
what good are you? We did a podcast like a million years ago about securing your own oxygen mask.
Mm-hmm.
And this ties into it beautifully. It's the same thing. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
setting your boundaries is a form of self-care, taking care of yourself first. And that way you can be better for everybody else around you.
For
Super important.
sure.
It's super important. You can't you can't let yourself go by the wayside just to make other people happy. Fuck everybody
Yeah.
else. Fuck everybody else.
Well, and I think one thing that I took away from those types of conversations we've had I mean, sometimes it is fuck everybody else, right? But also it
Sometimes
is,
you can't.
but
Sometimes you
also
can't.
it
Yeah.
is not necessarily me first, but
No,
it's me too.
me too.
Me
Yes.
too. So you
Yes.
cannot, just you cannot just completely disregard, and what you need matters. Just like
Right.
it matters what everybody else needs.
Right. Yes. When you're
So,
really, really tired and you've worked all day and the only thing you can think about is like going home and going to bed, you don't even care about anything else. But then you remember, like, oh, yeah, there's like people at home that I got to take care of.
right.
You can't just abandon them and be like, peanut butter and jelly in the fridge, deuces, I'm going to bed. Like, no. That's the one time you can't say, like, fuck everybody else, because no, you have little people that absolutely need to be fed and they might
Well,
need to
there's
be
a,
bathed
yeah,
and
no,
stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
that's not the type of
There's
dependence we're
things.
talking about.
Yeah.
That's not the type of abandoning yourself we're talking
No,
about.
no.
There's a difference between parenting and nurturing versus like codependency and setting respectful boundaries. Those are two
Yes.
very separate, different
Separate
things. So
things.
nobody's saying like don't feed your kids or anything
Yeah,
like
please,
that and
please
just go
remember
to
to feed your
bed.
kids.
Um, yeah, that's not at all what this conversation is
No.
meant to be. But it does mean that maybe like mom can't play soccer in the backyard tonight because I'm
Right.
just so tired. I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
buddy. Like, can we just like, can we watch a movie together instead? Or hey, like, let's grab
Hmm.
your library book and we'll read longer tonight, type of thing.
Yeah.
Like modifying things so that you can take care of yourself and still take
Hmm.
care of others
Right.
when it's appropriate.
Take care of yourself and then
Yeah.
you can take care of other people. It's a
This has
beautiful
been
thing.
really good. I've liked this conversation a lot. I think that boundaries and respect is something that just is an ongoing conversation. And sometimes
Hmm.
we need to remind ourselves how to find our place, how to find ourselves in a place of just
Respect.
respect and knowing that you deserve it. You
Yeah. That's
deserve to be
hard too.
respected.
That's hard too. Because, like for me personally, I feel like I don't deserve good things. And I'm really working on rewiring my brain to change those feelings. It's really
Mm.
hard. It's 43 years of unlearning. 43 years of learning that no, I am worth it and I am deserving of good things. It's really, really hard. And
Mm.
it makes it more difficult to set boundaries because it's like, well, they deserve that more than I do. So I'll just do the thing. I'll just do the thing. And, like maybe I'll take care of myself later. Probably not, but
That's
maybe.
well, it's some deep inner and shadow work that's needed for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's a great conversation for another time too. But that is I will tell you there is nothing that you don't deserve in way of
Absolutely.
good things happening to you. And I know that superficially you believe that, but you need to know it on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it is true. And I feel like in your heart of hearts, you can acknowledge that that's true. It's just the believing it.
Believing it, outcomes, outcome assessment.
Hmm.
When more hard things happen, you're like, well, shit, okay, cool, more bad stuff, but that's cool. That's cool. I didn't deserve it anyway, but it's not true. Sometimes
No,
bad, but sometimes bad
no.
stuff just happens, and it's just something that we got to go through, figure out, and persevere and move along, little doggy, move along.
I think this has been good. I hope it's been helpful for our friend and to anybody else that is listening in today. Always, we are open to your suggestions on what you'd like
Mm-hmm.
to hear in this space and what you'd like us to talk about. So, if anybody has input in that regard, certainly you can respond to the form within the show notes. There is ways to reach out via the website, which are also in the show notes. You can connect with us on, well, you can connect with me on social media. I think Monica here is incognito in a lot of ways, but uh you can connect with me always.
Maybe,
All
maybe
ways to
you
connect
tag me and stuff. She tags me
yeah.
and stuff. I have a different name on social media, but it's for real me. It's for real me. So when she tags me in it, that's me. Hey.
Yeah. But always ways to stay connected to us are for sure in the show notes. And,
Mhm.
we are open to pretty much any conversation in this space. And it's always fun when Monica and I get together and talk about just the different layers of life. And you just never know
Mhm.
where the conversation's going to go. That's for sure.
No, Monica says weird stuff.
She sure does. But that's what you show up here for, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I am all for the comedic value. So I hope I hit that on point. Also, I'd like to correct myself. I said Doctor Who, and that's a totally different show. It was Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange was a
okay.
weird little time guy, did like the quantum leapy thingy. I don't know what that was, but I've only watched the show a few times.
All right.
But it's
Well,
for sure Doctor Strange. So
okay. I was gonna
I don't
say
want to.
I know somebody that would probably for sure correct that.
Yeah,
I think would probably know that. I have no idea.
yeah.
I'm
I
not
don't
that
know. I just
cool,
make stuff
but
up as I go along. No, me neither. Clearly.
all right, love. This has been great. Thank you so much for allowing
Been
me to
great.
drag you into this space again.
I love it. I just say yes to you because I know you would never make me abandon my boundaries. So when you say, hey, you want to record? I'm like, cool, whatever. I don't even ask what we're talking about. Yeah, sure, right on.
Well, and that there's not a sense of dread or
No,
regret in that yes makes you
no,
know that it is
absolutely.
a
It's
good
always fun.
decision.
Always fun.